So we've been talking about this last few weeks. John Kerry, as you know, is trying to set a deal with Iran into their nuclear program, and they're trying to negotiate how that should be administered. But with the March 31st target fast approaching, that's the target that congressional Democrats put on before they said they're going to put on new sanctions. The top diplomats from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, Germany and Iran, were meeting to try to bridge remaining gaps and hammer out the framework deal that would be the basis for a final accord to be reached by the end of June. But it's gotten a little more complicated, as it always seems to be doing. When Iranian negotiators reportedly made a last-ditch push for more concessions from the U.S. and 5 other world powers, as talks on the fate of Iran's nuclear program would come down to the final days. I mean, where does Iran, like I said, just like they don't want a deal. I mean, every time we come to agree with them, they're just putting more and more on. The New York Times reported this past Sunday that Tehran has backed away from a tentative promise to ship a large portion of its uranium stockpile to Russia, where it could be used as a part, where it could not be used as a part of any future weapons program. Western officials insisted to the paper that the uranium did not have to be sent overseas, but could be sent in other ways. This new twist in the talks comes just 2 days, like I said, before the deadline for both sides to agree on a framework deal. If Iran insists on keeping its uranium in the country, it could undermine a key argument made in favor of the deal by the Obama administration. The Times reports that if uranium had gone to Russia, it would have been converted into fuel rods, which are difficult to use in a nuclear weapon. But if the uranium stays in Iran, my bet is that they'll be probably used for more destructive reasons, which again, in my opinion, is the whole reason Iran even has a nuclear program. They don't need nuclear energy. They have plenty of fuel there. They have some of the biggest gas deposits in the world. Iran has provided more evidence that they're not going to work. One second. Iran has provided more evidence that they're not going to work with us, as Iran's Revolutionary Guard says that a U.S. drone strike now has killed 2 of its advisors in Iraq, though the U.S. said Monday it has only struck militants in the campaign. So now they're trying to charge you with killing your own people. They don't want to deal with this. It's like Curie refused to learn that you cannot deal with Iran. I mean, to me, it's like when a girl finally learns that her favorite pop singer is gay. Deep down, she knows it's true, but she doesn't want her dream to die of being with him. And that is Kerry's look on Iran. He knows it can't happen, but some deep down, he just continues to go on.
Lots of things were just said.
Break it down for us.
Break it down. Let's see. Let's start off with the idea that Iran does not want a deal. I'd have to say that they definitely do want a deal, but posing your own interests and hopes in a negotiation is kind of the expected protocol of any party in a negotiation.
To me, it's not just that. It's the fact that, okay, we almost come to a deal, and just like last week, okay, then they want something else. Okay, all right, we got to negotiate with that now. And then we go another week, and it's like, okay, now we're getting close to a deal, and then now they want something else. Yeah, it's like every time we get almost to a deal, they just keep adding and adding and adding. I mean, they don't, obviously, they're just trying to make this as more difficult as they can for us.
I'm sure they would say the same thing about American officials and negotiators, that, I mean, you start off with a very hard line deal in favor of America, and Iran's going to act in a way that promotes their interests. But I feel like I don't think Iran is necessarily like acting in a way to impede progress on these deals. I don't know if they would gain anything out of that from just drawing these deals on for forever. So I think we're still going to see progress in the nuclear program. I mean, we've already seen more progress than we have in previous decades with Iran.
I don't know. Iran is continuously developing their nuclear program, and people like Israel is continuously saying that it is for destructive reasons. And even, like I said, going back to my argument a few weeks ago, even if we do have some kind of deal with them, we have to rely on Iran to hold that deal. Mm-hmm. And Iran's not going to hold it. I mean, they're not trustworthy. Yeah, it's speculation, but come on, it's Iran.
It's the same argument you used against the Indiana religious freedom bill, is that we don't need to shoot down the bill just because there's a chance it could be.
Right, but this is Iran. They've had
just because there's a chance that Iran's going to.
You got to remember, the head Ayatollah of Iran just last week said "Death to America." The head Iranian official.
No, not Iranian official, religious official. The Ayatollah is
right, but he's top guy over there. He said, "Death to Iran." I mean, death to America. And then they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. These are the kind of people that do not like us.
Yeah.
So they're not going to hold any kind of deal. They're just going to get us here so we can kind of take some of the sanctions off of them. Because sanctions are working. The sanctions are hurting Iran. There's no doubt about that. And they don't like that. So they're going to say, okay, we're going to have some kind of tentative deal to make America happy. We get some of these sanctions off of us, and now we're free to do what we want. I say, let's let, like I said a few weeks ago, let's let the sanctions work. And eventually Iran is going to have to break down because they can't continuously have these sanctions. That's the most peaceful way of doing it because I said these sanctions are working.
Yeah, they're working, and that's why we're having this discussion right now, is because they have worked.
And that's why I'm saying we don't even need to negotiate with Iran because they have nothing to bring to the negotiation table. If our sanctions are working, it's us that holds all the cards. Iran holds nothing.
What they have to bring to the table, I think, in the view of the world community, is lowering the amount of possible nuclear aggression there is in the world. Like, I mean, last year, there's a precedent for Iran to hold its end of the deal. Like last year, Iran agreed to halt its nuclear program for 6 months. In recognition, there was no recognition of right to enrich. They just completely halted the entire program. And in return, the United States agreed to provide about $6 to $7 billion in sanctions relief.
To me,
so, I mean, there's precedents for negotiations going through.
Okay, here's the negotiation. It's real simple. Get rid of all your nuclear stuff, and we'll let go of the sanctions a little bit.
And we'll keep all of our nuclear stuff.
Yeah. Right.
I think one thing that's really important to remember is that Iranians don't hate Americans for no reason, right? There's a reason for that. And there are many reasons for many different Iranians, and I'm sure not every single Iranian hates Americans. But I understand your point. I think another thing to remember is that they're not just backing down. This is something they tentatively agreed to for months, which was to ship their stockpile of uranium to Russia, where it wouldn't be accessible for use in any future weapons program. And then just this Sunday decided, no, we don't agree to that anymore. So I think on the one hand, that is sort of, poor game in a negotiation setting where over the course of months, they've built their negotiation off of that tentative agreement, and then they pull the plug in the last minute, which is actually smart because they have the leverage. The Americans have the deadline. There's no, the Democrats didn't say the Iranians have to come to a decision by this point. They said the Americans have to come to a decision by this point, and they know that Kerry has to take home a deal.
Well, the deadline's good for us because the deadline says, okay, Iran, you have more sanctions now. And that's what, like I said, that's the future for us, is to put more of these sanctions on, pressure them a little more so they slowly start backing down because they're going to have no other choice.
But I think the U.S. government would much prefer to walk away with a deal than to have to just continue to do this sanctions thing, which, works, I mean, as you two just demonstrated, it works for each side a little bit, and it's not really a solution to the problem. I think the U.S. government would like to walk away with a deal, and that's the leverage that Iran holds.